Tonight is the CNN Climate Change Town Hall, and there are 10 candidates participating, but only one of those candidates has an A grade from Greenpeace, a leading climate change organization. Yeah, that guy I just showed you. That guy's Bernie Sanders. Which shouldn't really be surprising to anyone. He called climate change our greatest national security threat 4 years ago and was mocked mercilessly by the media, by centrist Democrats, by Republicans, of course. Now many candidates on the stage are saying it. And here are the rest of the rankings of the other candidates, the rest of the grades that Greenpeace gave them. Elizabeth Warren comes in second, a rise after she released her climate change plan based on Jay Inslee's, which has been praised heavily by the Sunrise Movement. And then Cory Booker, surprisingly, comes in at 3. Both have A-minuses. Then we have Kamala Harris and Joe Biden with B+, Julian Castro and Pete Buttigieg with Bs, Beto O'Rourke with a B-, and Amy Klobuchar and Andrew Yang have the worst grades of those participating with C+. Marianne Williamson and Tulsi Gabbard are not participating, but they both have Bs. The point of this is not just to point out that Bernie Sanders has the significant respect of climate change activists, which is important, but you know, we all know that. We all know that he and the activist community, the unions, they have a very close relationship because he's a voice for the people. But this is also to point out the specific details of his record that got him to this grade. So Greenpeace isn't the end-all be-all. I encourage you all to look up different methodologies, all of that. But Greenpeace is a leading climate change organization for a reason, and they explain why they gave Senator Sanders an A. Senator Sanders released a bold plan to invest $16 trillion in a Green New Deal to usher in 100% renewable energy in a decade, end giveaways to the fossil fuel industry and hold big polluters accountable, and prioritize workers, communities of color, and indigenous communities in a just and inclusive transformation of the economy. He committed to immediately end federal subsidies and leases for fossil fuel production, halt new oil, gas, and coal projects, and ban harmful fracking and mountaintop removal practices. This was one way that Sanders' plan is further to the left and more progressive, more comprehensive than Elizabeth Warren's, an unequivocal fracking ban, basically, which hers didn't go as far as. He pledged to hold fossil fuel companies accountable and make them pay for their contributions to the climate crisis. Senator Sanders championed climate action for years in Congress, including co-sponsoring the 100 by 50 Act and Keep It in the Ground Act to cut off federal support for coal, oil, and gas while ushering in 100% clean energy by 2050. So as I said, this is not shocking to anyone. Everyone knows that Bernie Sanders is a card-carrying leftist who has been on the right side of issues for basically his entire career. Again, even the vote that they hold against him, the fact that he signed on to the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden infamously authored and has driven mass incarceration, and Biden still is defending it. Bernie is publicly saying, I don't want to vote for this, but I'm so in favor of the Violence Against Women Act that I have to vote for the crime bill. So even the questionable votes, there's pretty much an explanation. And that's the kind of gumption that we don't see in Washington nowadays. So it's good to know that these activist organizations are paying attention, close attention to that record, to that history. And Elizabeth Warren, for example, she has a good history with climate change, but she did have some blots on her record. They moved her a little bit up because of her adoption of the Jay Inslee proposals and a lot of the other things in her plan. So when it comes to the breadth of record, though, I mean, Bernie Sanders has been in Congress way longer than anyone running except Joe Biden. So there's so much material, but that's really what's impressive about it. When you look at Joe Biden's record versus Bernie's, it's really no comparison, and they both are similarly elderly statesmen, I will say that, and they've been in government for a long time. So good news for Bernie Sanders and good news for anyone who cares about the climate, because now you know who the #1 candidate is on that issue.